It's very true. We don't think about where our clothing comes from in terms of sustainability. We, as a culture, have pretty much adapted to being pretty familiar with recycling our bottles and our cans. We have that system organized within our garbage pickup, but we don't really think about the clothing. But if you think about it, we all wear clothing. Everybody in some form across the world wears clothing. So what I'm going to do, since we're not really familiar with this, is kind of talk about how I got into this, but also give you a little overview of the fashion industry, because I think we still need to connect some dots. So I work, as Diane said, in the sphere of recycled design and education. So as a designer, I only use pre-existing or secondhand materials. That means that I'm not creating any new resources, I'm not ordering any new resources, and I'm creating absolutely no new waste. And as an educator, I teach others how to refashion items, and I also speak about the ethics about why thinking about fashion is important. So it's only been, as Brother Steve mentioned, within the last 100 years that we've created an industry out of clothing, and we started to mass produce within the Industrial Revolution. Our ancestors used to know exactly who made their coat. And it would be tailored to their body, and it would get passed down. It would constantly be reused until it literally fell apart. Today we live in a culture called fast fashion, and we're told to buy more, consume more, change your wardrobe monthly based on trends. And we base our decisions usually when we're consuming based on getting the best deal. And we brag about that. We all do it, but we're not bragging about the quality of the item, or if it was ethically made, or if we bought it directly from somebody that was in Ethiopia that we know the direct line of how they made it. We've lost, in a sense, our ability to value something, just one thing. And not only is this spiritually devastating, but we've also created a monster out of this way of thinking. So I kind of want to go into connecting some of the dots, that things that I didn't know. As an environmental activist, actually, I didn't know these things. This is why I turned into an eco-fashion designer. The fashion industry is a global industry. It encompasses textile, apparel, accessories, footwear, and luxury goods. It brings in about $2.5 trillion yearly. It employs about 60 million people worldwide. Roughly 94% of the people who are employed by the fashion industry are in third world countries. In Bangladesh, where a lot of our clothing is made, and they don't have, we don't have standardized labor regulations, the average monthly wage for a garment worker is around $43. And this falls way below the UN's definition of the poverty line. This industry, the fashion industry, is the second largest polluter, apart from oil, in terms of environmental impact. It's the number 2 polluter of water, second to agriculture. And to give you an idea of what that is, just to make one t-shirt, it takes about 2,700 liters of water. Now that's what your doctor would recommend that you drink in 3 years. And that's to make one t-shirt. So I think it's a long paragraph, but I think this is important to just mention. We're all wearing a shirt. So I want us to all sort of just think about what our shirt right now. And I'm going to kind of run through the process of what you think about as an eco-designer when you're thinking about when making a shirt. You think about, where did the fibers come from? What country? How were the fibers farmed? Who picked them? How were they made into textile? What was used to dye them? How much waste was created from the pattern when you cut it out? Did it go to the landfill directly? Who took the fabrics and sewed it, and in what conditions? And if it's so cheap to buy, what were they paid? How were the animals and the insects raised and killed to make it? How much gas was used to ship it, as we were talking about earlier? Did it fly here? Was it shipped here on a boat? Was it all made in one place? Very unlikely. It was probably made all across the world and then shipped all around. How many trees were harvested to make the price tags and the magazines that you're getting in the mail to advertise for this t-shirt? how much waste was created in packaging it, and finally, when they asked you if you wanted a bag to take it home, did you say yes? Phew, right? It's overwhelming. But those are the statistics that I heard when I was working in Washington, D.C., working on women's issues. And that's literally what kind of I had my eco conversion, in the sense that I could be an activist through the art of clothing and probably reach a lot more people by creating really fun and engaging pieces. So that's a little bit of the background. Brother Steve had mentioned just sort of me talking a little bit about Generation X and the millennials, and being, he was very kind to call me millennial, but I think of Generation X. But I'll speak on behalf of them. So if it's okay, Diane, I know you had some questions, but I'd like to just sort of talk about my choices of why I chose this as a younger person. When I was growing up, my mom would take me to church, and I would sit and I would hear the gospel. And I thought everybody was supposed to take Jesus literally. You know, you hear these beautiful stories of how Jesus lived and how he's telling us that we should model our lives. And as a young girl, I thought, okay. But as I grew, I noticed that the paths of society that it laid out for its youth all focus on wealth and worldly success. So you go to college, you get a job. It doesn't really matter what job you get as long as you have prestige and a good stock options. You work really hard to feed yourself and to feed your family. You volunteer on the side, but not full time, because that's crazy. It doesn't pay. There was nothing about dedicating your career choices to helping other people by making sacrifices of material possessions. There was no shared economy of pooling all your resources instead of opening, private bank accounts and accumulating your own wealth. Jesus was telling us to sell our possessions, and here we are going out into the world trying to gain more. To trust that by following God, you would be fed like the birds of the sky. That's what Jesus taught. That's not what the world taught. And our culture makes these choices on our youth based on fear. And God asks us to make them out of love. So you kind of have to be countercultural. You had to be. When I was growing up, you had to be countercultural. So that's why any decision that I make in terms of my career, I truly feel that it's my responsibility as a Christian to incorporate the principles of people plus planet into my business model and not just profit. So being a part of the creation of a business, which is called Fashion Redesign, which is an upcycled clothing label, being a part of a creation of a business that was solely focused on profits, of which my goals would be, as a business, continued growth and accumulation of wealth, is selfish to me, no matter what excuses I give. So to say, as a fashion designer, I need to create a collection of clothing the cheapest way possible and put my name all over the label, and that's very egotistical. It really is. And I encountered that in Los Angeles when I was out there working in this. That's what you do. That's how you create a business. It's not very ecological, but it's very egotistical. If there's a way to feed myself and to feed my family and to feed other people, that is the goal of my business. And that is not because I follow the world, that's because I follow Jesus. One thing the Pope talks about in the encyclical, and the encyclical, by the way, was not a spark to me to say, oh, this is something I should be thinking about. This was just strictly validation of what not only I, but many of us in the sustainable movement have already been working towards. So now we can say, the Pope's behind us. And that's really actually nice. My husband said, you have a friend in the Pope. And I was like, show me. And it was very refreshing. One thing the Pope talks about is needing to create a circular model of production. A circular model of production, maximizing the efficient use, reusing, and recycling of resources. Now, in terms of product design, this means that when a company creates a product, right now, the way that we've currently been creating products is from cradle to grave. So you're creating a product, it's meant for one purpose, it's a chair, and when you're done with the chair, you as the consumer are stuck with figuring out what you're going to do with it if you don't want to throw it away. So the burden falls on you. Circular production is saying a more of a cradle-to-cradle production line, saying that as a business, you have the responsibility that when you, to better the planet, it's actually from a business model that could be so brilliant. You're creating a product as a chair. The chair can be taken apart, either biodegradable, but let's have it serve another purpose. The plastic can go into creating another product, which that company then will buy back, and you as a consumer can make money off of your garbage. And it's just a cycle where things never die. It's called cradle to cradle. And I really believe, and the Pope is saying here too, that that's the future of how we should be producing our products and the future of product design. The last thing I kind of want to say is something when I went to Brother Steve's last talk. We were doing this beautiful presentation, and the only questions he was getting was, well, can you prove that climate change exists? And, I'm so skeptical that it even exists, and I just, you got to prove it to me. And I'm thinking, okay, it's like saying, Lord, I need to see you to believe. I need proof that you exist before I'm going to change my ways. When being a Christian already means that we're meant to guide every decision that we make first through the eyes of Jesus. So to me, that's not even important. If we're throwing away 10.5 million tons of clothing a year worldwide that rot in landfills, that does create toxins that do go up into the atmosphere. But aren't we supposed to be first mindful of our careless waste, regardless of whether toxins are going up? If we are cutting down the rainforests, that Pope Francis called the lungs of our planet, to create grazing space for cows, which produce 150 billion gallons of methane per day, that does go up into the atmosphere. But doesn't it first concern us that God's creation, the rainforest, which the Pope talks a lot about in the encyclical, is saying that everything serves a rightful purpose on this planet. It serves a purpose for us all to exist. Even if we don't understand it, we should value it. So one of the quotes that I really like about the encyclical that the Pope said is, we are called to be instruments of God, so that our planet might be what God desired when it was created and correspond with God's plan for peace, beauty, and fullness. And I think we all can tap into some true wisdom. And remember that Holy Sophia is a part of our faith too. And I think we've lost a huge connection with holy wisdom. And wisdom in the Spirit will guide us into peace, beauty, and fullness. So that's my little overview.
That's wonderful. I think it encompasses a lot. How can I think about redesign as a life model?
The first thing I say is I want everyone to put me out of business, because if you consume less, which is the best thing, the best choice you can make, that's the biggest difference. But redesigning is, what I do is I take something that already exists, that's already been made, and I upcycle it. Upcycling is a form of recycling, but you're not using any new energy. You're literally just taking, and I have a bunch of examples back here, you're taking something from something that already exists and you're refashioning it. So you could look at the wardrobe that you already have, take elements and patterns and colors and styles that you already like from it, and if you don't have the skill set to be able to see that yourself, you would hire a redesigner who would be like a tailor in your community. You would bring your old clothes to them, and they would make you a new wardrobe out of your existing one. Mm-hmm. If you can choose vintage or consume less over buying something new, you're already making a huge, huge, huge difference in everything that we just talked about. When you are thinking of going to Kohl's and using your Kohl's cash, don't let it get you. Don't let the advertisers get into your head.
That's what people think, though. Do not, what? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's okay. Yeah. I understand sometimes, but like if we just made different choices, if we said, okay, now we live in an internet world. You can go on the internet and you can type in organic bamboo blouse, and you will have a lot of options. But the best thing I'd say you can do right now is support designers who are struggling in this system to incorporate different business models by supporting them, by purchasing from them. If we purchase from recycled, ethical, upcycled designers, we're supporting it. We're encouraging more, and I speak with fashion design students. We're encouraging more of them who are scared to make those choices. You're supporting them. I first started doing it like this because I saw the potential of what you could make out of things that already existed, and then I thought people would really like that idea. People would really like that story. And they do. They just don't buy it. So it's frustrating because how do you just educate people and feed yourself? If people like the idea but they don't want to support you when you're doing it, it's frustrating. But it's not just people's fault, it's the whole way the system's set up. People are used to buying crap made by people who are suffering for $5 or $10. And then, but I have things here today that took me hours to make, and I have it at $10, trying to compete with that, and it's selling, right? It's a world of commodities, and you're always trying to sell something and buy something. I think we should just stop buying things. That's what I really think, and I don't want to be a part of even making things. That if they're going to be sold, I'd rather people knew how to do it themselves, and then we were just reusing things that we already owned instead of having to go out to somebody else to do it for us. I'm not a salesperson. And I don't even pretend to be. I can't even pretend to try to sell stuff. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
It's all redesigned. It's either 10 or 20 unless it's got a price tag on it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Sure.